Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the ROKER RAPPORT podcast in association with the Sunlun Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav and you join us back once again, I say this every week, once again to talk about a Sunlun win. We beat Cambridge at home 5-1, a rather one-sided performance and one that I'm going to enjoy talking about with my good friend Phil. Hello Phil.
Hi Gav, how are you doing?
I'm very good. Well, I say I'm very good. As you both know, and we'll bring in Martin in a second, but as you both know, I had a bit too much to drink last night watching the fight, so that's probably why I sound like this. And yeah, I feel as good as I can, Phil. Also joined from the other side of the world by Martin Wanless. Hi, Martin.
Gav, I'm probably doing a little bit better than you are by the looks of things.
Yeah. I'm just going to bake in the sun, I think, in the garden today and try and get over it. Anyways, we're here to talk about the football. 5-1, like I said, Phil, against Cambridge. Before we started, I said it's a weird one to try and pick apart this because although we won 5-1 and it was very one-sided, they made it easy for us, didn't they? They basically gave us the game by giving us a penalty and having a man sent off very early in the first half. But
yeah,
I mean, as we've seen this season at the Stadium of Light, it can go one or two ways, can't it? You can either batter the team, or you can do what's happened a couple of times this season to us, and when you come up against 10 men, you really struggle to break them down, and thankfully Cambridge just couldn't be arsed, could they? So
no.
It was a bit of a training game and a good one to set us up for the rest of the week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, before the game, Gav, I would have taken any kind of a victory, to be honest with you, with how tight the league table is and how nervy it's going to be over the final week as everyone's scrapping for points to get into those playoffs. But I thought our attitude, once we got the advantage of them going down to 10 men, I thought our attitude was brilliant. They were ruthless, composed, businesslike. There was no hint of them. Even when we conceded the goal to let them, when the game went 2-1, I always felt that we were in control of it and that we were not going to let that slip. So that told me that we'd learnt the lessons from the Shrewsbury game. Game management was much better. And I thought, like I said, our application yesterday was absolutely top notch. That was a high pressure game, make no mistake about it. But the body language of the players was excellent. Really, they were really up for it. They were really motivated. You could tell that they were determined to put a performance on. And as you said, Gav, it was a very comprehensive victory and exactly the kind of win that we needed, I feel, because it's going to be, it's a big week coming up for the club. And to go into it on the back of a victory like that with so many players in great form is very, very encouraging.
Yeah, and Ross Stewart got back in amongst the goals, Martin. That was a big positive, wasn't it? Because we've been saying it for weeks on here. We just need to get him to score goals again for the playoffs, really. I mean, he's our best player this season, and we've missed his goals, really. I mean, the other players have all chipped in over the last few weeks to try and cover for his sort of drop in form. But, I mean, I know getting the penalty nice and early in the game, that'll have done his confidence wonders. And then the second goal, I don't know about you, but when the ball came into him, I thought his touch was terrible. Yet the way he swiveled and hit it was like a confident striker's goal, wasn't it? So it was pleasing to see him get back in amongst it.
Certainly was. It was Kevin Phillips-esque, I think, his second goal, the way he sort of swiveled and hammered it in. But I was having a look earlier, and I think before yesterday, he'd only scored 2 goals from open play in the last 18 games, which for a striker who's had such a lot of goals and been such an important player for us this season, he really has had a season of 2 halves, hasn't he? I think up until the Wickham game in January, he was on fire, and he's struggled a little bit. And it's to be expected, really. He's come from Scotland. He was a bit part player last year, had a few injuries, and he was really thrust into the starting 11. I don't think anybody really expected him to play as much football as he has done this season. I think he's played more minutes than anybody else in the team. And, the lack of options that we have up front is required him to play every minute of every game. And even yesterday, Alex Neil said he would have liked to have taken him off and given him a rest, but he just didn't have a sub available, didn't have an option to give him a rest. But look, if he's coming back into form right now, that can only be good news for us, can't it? Yeah,
I'm over the moon. I think Ross Stewart to me is he's the epitome of what I want to see in a League One Sunderland team from a player. Yeah. He just does everything really well. I mean, even yesterday there was times where he was at right back defending and sort of winning headers and duels and stuff. It's you need players like that in your team to be successful.
Can I just chip in on Stuart there, Gav? Because there was a point that Martin just made there about how he's been such a key player for us this season. And after the Plymouth game, on Monday, where he did look a bit jaded. He looked a bit as if, he was, he was running on empty a little bit. And I saw some people on Twitter saying that, his head's been turned, rumours of a transfer, etc., etc. That performance that he turned in yesterday was not the kind of performance that a striker who wants away from this football club would turn in. I'll tell you that. We've all seen it when strikers are playing as if they're desperate for a move away. Ross Stewart was fully connected yesterday. He was bang on form, and he wants to get this club promoted. So the questions about his commitment to the team and all that type of thing, I think that's absolute nonsense personally. I think he's had a bad run of form, but I don't think his commitment should ever be in question. And I think he was duly rewarded yesterday. 2 crucial goals, and as you said, Gav, the second of which he turned what looked like a bit of a hopeless situation into a quality finish, and that was a really good sign, without a doubt.
Yeah, we'll go through this in a bit more of a chronological order. Then Elliot Embleton got the second goal, which he didn't mean it, did he, Martin? Let's be honest. But
well, he says he did.
Well, it's sort of like a bit of a percentage shot, I would call it. We play pool, but when I play pool, we call it like percentage shots and stuff, where you do something, and if it doesn't come off, then at least you've put it into a certain area or whatever. With this cross that he put in from the free kick, it was one of those where if someone didn't get the head on it at the back post, there was a good chance that it would go towards the back post. And we've done this before. We've done it against Cambridge away, didn't we? I think it was Alex Pritchard scored direct from a corner.
Wasn't it?
Do you know? I haven't had a chance to look this up. Does anyone know if that was the same goalkeeper or not?
Not sure.
No,
I don't know. I suspect it is.
He was absolutely useless there, keeper. By the way, he was terrible.
He was.
He made a couple of good saves, but it didn't overshadow the fact how bad he was. But the goal from Embleton, though, you see, he meant it, or he said he meant it.
Well, he said he meant it,
right?
And I actually think I think this is a thing that we've seen increasingly with Alex Neil's tenure at the football club, in that he works on weaknesses within the opposition, and he works to sort of nullify their strengths. Like we saw against Plymouth, where he put 09 over to the left-hand side to try to mitigate the danger Sessegnon posed down that side on Monday. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Embleton's free kick was a case of this keeper's dodgy with crosses coming over his head high. Any chance to put the ball into the far post, and if it goes in, goes in. If it doesn't go in, he'll flap at it. Somebody will get a header onto it. So I think it was very deliberately put into that area. And if it goes in, if it gets a touch, it's great, isn't it? Yeah.
But then we done what we do quite often, and a minute later, Phil, they scored, and I saw Alex Neil on the touch, because first thing I did when they scored is I looked at him on the touchline, and he absolutely wellied the bottles all over the place.
I was about 5 rows back from that, and he absolutely, it was like he was taking a penalty. He absolutely nailed them because he was livid. But again, that just shows that he's how high a premium he's putting on keeping clean sheets and being defensively tight. And I think that the goal we conceded was just a classic case of we got a bit giddy. Embleton's just scored a goal, the whole stadium's bouncing, the players just switch off for a moment, and Cambridge kind of take advantage of that. Yeah. And it was just defensive slackness, really. It was a decent finish, don't get me wrong, but then, I suppose the game can go one of two ways, can't it? 2-1, then you're thinking, the ghosts of Shrewsbury, game management, are we going to let them back in? But we didn't, and then obviously, as I'm sure we'll talk about, then we went straight, down the other end and scored another good goal from Stewart. So I thought, again, it was all about attitude and responding to conceding that goal. And the response was fantastic.
Yeah, we responded brilliantly. Like I say, really disappointing goal. The manager wasn't happy. I mean, we could sit and pick it apart. There are a few things in that goal, really, that were worrying. I mean, we saw Callum Doyle make a mistake further up the pitch, which then allowed them to advance. Then Lynden Gooch has a bit of an air shot at it. Danny Bart I don't really know what he's doing, sort of half-hearted dive at the ball. And they score. It's a decent goal, but it is frustrating because you know how much importance Alex Neil places on clean sheets. But the third goal came not long after. I think it was about 36 minutes into the game. Ross Stewart, I know we've already talked about it, but that response, Martin, was important, wasn't it? We had to. There was a bit of tension in the stadium after their goal, because I turned around to my mate and I was like, you wouldn't think we were winning. It killed the atmosphere, totally killed the atmosphere on the ground because they'd scored. And it could have went one or two ways. It could have went the other way, where Cambridge got their tails up a little bit, a bit like we saw with Shrewsbury the other week, and they could have got back in the game and made it 2-2. But But to be fair to us, we got our foot back on the ball and we played some good stuff leading up to that goal. And it was, like I say, a good finish from Ross Stewart.
It was, and I thought I thought Cambridge's whole setup was really like ridiculously naive. And whether they just didn't give a toss or whether they were just set up badly, I don't know. But like they'd beaten Wigan last week, hadn't they? And then rested a boatload of players in midweek so they were fresh for the game on Saturday. But they were pushing up so high from the kickoff, and they were leaving spaces in between their defence and the 18-yard box, and we were just trying to chip balls in for players to run onto. And even after getting that goal back, they didn't change the way they were set up. They were still trying to push and squeeze us. And that goal, they just let us have so much space. I just couldn't believe how like daft they were, really.
Yeah.
It was really important that we got that response quickly. And I think looking on the positive side of it, hopefully the players have learned from that Shrewsbury game. They've picked apart some of the things that went wrong. And like, Phil used a whole load of adjectives earlier about the performance. Like, we were relentless yesterday in just our pursuit of victory and a good victory. And that goal didn't knock us off our stride. And that's a really good sign, I think, for us over the coming week and hopefully weeks.
Yeah, we've got we've got something about us at the minute. I don't know what it is. It's just, it doesn't matter really how the game ebbs and flows and how we play and stuff. We seem to have this ruthlessness about us, which I never knew we had in us. Like, I always thought when Lee Johnson was manager, I always thought we had the ability to play teams off the park, but I never thought we were ruthless. I didn't think we had that edge about our game. And I mean, you could say that the reintroduction of Luke O'Nien into midfield has given us a little bit of bite. Corey Evans coming into form has really helped. But I actually think a big part of this has been, in recent weeks especially, Elliot Embleton's emergence back into the team. And on Saturday, he was playing as a central midfield player. And I know Cambridge made it very, very easy for us. But the way he was just running the show, I mean, it's the first time I've watched Elliot Embleton and thought, this kid's got a future here. Normally I watch him and I think, he's got something about him, but I'm not sure what it is. And I think ultimately, during his time in our first team and in the first team setup, he's never really been able to nail down a spot. And we've talked about this before. We talked about, is he a number 10? Can he play off the left?
Yeah.
That sort of deep sitting midfield position where he's just pinging the ball about. I don't know what you think, Phil. I'll bring you in on this, but that could be his position going forward, couldn't it?
It could be, and I thought he was absolutely top class yesterday, Gav. I just thought that, it was as if he said to the players, look, lads, I'm going to kind of pull the strings today. I'm going to be the one who conducts things. I'm going to be the one who sprays the ball about, who opens up the space, who gets the others into the game. And my God, he delivered. It was an absolutely supreme performance. And as you said, we've got to caveat it by the fact that he had a lot of time and space, to go about his business. And that, obviously, he might find it trickier in other matches. But, when the pitch is open up for him and when he has the time and the space to kind of, to see the play around him, to see where his teammates are and to get that ball moving, it was a joy to watch him yesterday, Gavin. I've been banging the Elliot Embleton drum for quite a while. I've always felt that he can really make a big contribution to this team. Yes, he hasn't quite nailed down a position. Obviously, with the arrival of Alex Pritchard, etc., that kind of pushed Embleton into a role that you might class as kind of a more utility player. But, when he was deployed in the position he was by Alex Neil yesterday, we've absolutely struck gold with him. And again, I just thought his attitude yesterday, the way he went about it was so confident, so composed, so, measured in his play. There was nothing hurried about it. There was nothing rushed. Might have played the odd dodgy pass here and there. But generally, it was just a supreme performance, Gavin. Again, I think that what you saw yesterday was kind of, we combined a lot of the attacking flair that we saw under Lee Johnson with the harder edge and the ruthlessness and the defensive solidity that Alex Neil has instilled in the team. You put those two together and we are a formidable team. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. So like I said, Embleton pulled the strings, ran the show, superb performance.
Yeah, another player who benefited a lot from the time and space Cambridge gave us was Lynden Gooch, Martin, and he got the assist for Broadhead's goal, the fourth one. Gooch is the target of a lot of criticism, and a lot of it is warranted. But again, this was a performance from a Sunlun player where you look at it and you go, where's he been? Where's this Lynden Gooch been? So the Lynden Gooch who gets the ball, hugs the touchline, takes one touch out of his feet and crosses it early and puts it in on the penalty spot. Where's that Lynden Gooch been? We've seen it in bits and pieces over the years, but never for a run of games. But we've got to give him credit, haven't we? That we spend a lot of time talking about how poorly he's played. This was probably his best game of the season.
I think it's probably his best game in Sunderland shirt, to be perfectly honest, Gav.
Yeah.
I think he was absolutely outstanding from start to finish. I think the big difference in his performance against Cambridge was he did the right things at the right time. He ran with it when it was the right thing to run with it. He got the ball in first time when it was the right thing to get the ball in first time. And he had their fullback on toast for the whole 90 minutes. I was interested in how we actually approached that aspect of the game, because I was listening to the podcast that we did with Chris did with Mark Saggers before the game. And by the way, if anybody hasn't listened to that, when you finish listening to this one, listen to the Mark Saggers podcast that we put out on Friday, because that is 2 hours of absolute broadcasting gold. If you keep a tally of the number of famous names mentioned, you'll need a couple of sheets of paper. But look, so we knew they had a weakness down their left hand side, because Mark Saggers told us. He said, down their left, there's an easy way to get at them, and Lynden Gooch demonstrated that. But look, he embodied. It was like Nicky Sumby had come back into the stadium with like the quality. But like in all seriousness, like he got the ball out of his feet quickly and whipped crosses in first time. And if we can do that and get that supply line, he's in the team every week. If he can do that consistently, he's got an absolute nailed down place, because everything else about Lynden Gooch, his attitude, his work rate, his desire to succeed for Sunderland, it's all there. And if he can get anything approaching consistency, he's a bloody good player for us. But the trouble is, as we've seen over the past 3 seasons, consistency isn't something that he has in his locker at the minute. But hey, absolutely stellar performance on Saturday, and let's hope he can keep it up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and the goal from Nathan Broadhead, you just mentioned the word consistency. There's another one for him, Phil.
Yeah.
He's come back into the team and just hit the ground running, hasn't he? He is not a League One player.
No, I can't get enough of him, Gav, to be honest with you. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. And again, another player who, early season, there were a few question marks over him, as he was settling in, and he was a bit erratic in his performances. But then he really found a rich vein of form. And then obviously when he went down injured over the winter, that really kind of robbed us of such a potent attacking weapon. And now he's come back into the team. And I thought he played brilliantly yesterday. And again, the way we set up yesterday and the way we approached the game, and the fact the game was so open, really suited Broadhead fantastically well. It was he was making good runs. He was aware. He was always looking to stretch Cambridge as well. And the goal was fantastic. And it was again, just on the subject of Lynden Gooch, that was a fantastic performance from him. And I think the thing about Lynden Gooch sometimes is that he gets the ball, and often he might take a second too long to decide what he's going to do with it, and then the whole move can break down. But yesterday, he was thinking all the time about what he was going to do next. That enabled us to speed the play up. But yeah, it was a really good header by Broadhead. Great ball in, and he just a great jump and a fantastic header. So no need for any late heroics from this week. It was a bit more routine from this week. But no, again, such a good player, and I'd love to think that there was a prospect that we could keep him for next season. Maybe depending on how the rest of the season plays out, do Everton want him back? But I think he's fantastic, and again, he's a player who I think has really revelled in the challenge this season of trying to help this club get promoted, and he's embraced the challenge of being a Sunderland player. So yeah, I thought he was fantastic. Really impressive.
Yeah, one thing we didn't touch on before there was the injury to Carl Winchester. He has been pretty much ever present in this team, hasn't he, Martin? And we've I actually like the way we adapted in the game to him coming out, because obviously it was a rather early injury in the game. And Callum Doyle came in, just slotted straight in. I know he was a little bit out of sorts for the goal, but it does show that we've got players there to bring in. I've said this over recent weeks, that I think we've got probably the best squad in the league. I'm not saying it's perfect, but how many other teams can bring in a left-footed Manchester City England youth international at left centre half who hasn't played for ages? You know what I mean? We've got the options there, haven't we? And I think that's something that Alex Neil talked about after the game. He he touched on it was good that Doyle got minutes regardless of the fact Winchester picked up a knock.
It was nice to see Callum Doyle back. I think he had a great start to the season, didn't he? And everybody was raving about him. And he, again, quite naturally went off the boil a little bit. 18-year-old playing his first, having his first taste of first-team football. I think Alex Neil had said that Callum Doyle had one training session before the game yesterday, and he was a player who he thought, you'd like to get him some minutes, but he's not ready to start the game. So hopefully his return to fitness has come at the right time. Winchester's going to, it looks as if he's going to be absent for a few games. We might not see him for the rest of the season if the injury's as bad as we're fearing. So he's going to be a big miss because he's so versatile, and he can naturally kind of flit between the full-back and the third centre-half position and give us that option to change it within the game without having to make subs. So I think he's been fantastic this season, Carl Winchester, and hopefully the injury isn't as bad as it looks as if it probably is.
Yeah, somebody who made their return from injury though was Alex Pritchard. He came on just before the hour mark, Phil, to replace Nathan Broadhead. It's nice that we were able to do that, and I'm talking about the options we've got in the team. You can take off Nathan Broadhead with half an hour to go and bring on Alex Pritchard.
Yeah,
and Pritchard has missed a fair chunk of football. I don't think he's really been available under Alex Neil. I think in his press conference the other day, he mentioned that he hasn't actually had Pritchard and Broadhead on the pitch for more than 1 or 2 games since he arrived. Yeah. And when you see that the way that Broadhead's playing, if you can somehow get Pritchard back into the team amongst all the other things that seem to be working at the minute, it's a great option, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic, and it's really encouraging, Gav, that at this crucial stage of the season, the depth of the squad is gradually getting better now. The injuries are starting to kind of hopefully die down a little bit, and we've got Neil's got more options available to him. And like you said, when you can afford to bring on a player of the quality of Alex Pritchard, you've got a heck of a good squad at your disposal. As you said, it's not a perfect squad by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a strong squad for this level. And yeah, it was great to see Pritchard get some minutes yesterday. I thought he made a really impressive cameo actually when he came on. I thought he looked good. He didn't take long to get up to speed. He was playing some nice passes. There was some good interplay between him and Roberts, and obviously including when Dan Neil came on as well. They linked up quite nicely. So given what we face now for the final week of the regular season, obviously with Rotherham and then Morecambe, having a player like Pritchard to call upon is huge for Alex Neil, because if you're a manager in the dugout and you can turn around to your bench and you can say to Alex Pritchard, right, go and get warmed up,
yeah,
that's a massive boost for you, and it's a massive boost for the fans as well, because Pritchard's a key player for us. So yeah, great to see him back yesterday.
Yeah, well, also Dan Neil came on. There's another player, you know what I mean? Dan Neil.
Yeah.
The players who didn't get on look like Jack Clark, who, I'm not his biggest fan, but he's still an option, isn't he? He's a forward player. Jay Matete, who was really good at Plymouth, I felt. Trey Hume, who just hasn't featured much. We've got quite a lot of players who aren't even featuring. The final goal we'll quickly touch on, Martin. Danny Barr couldn't have missed, really, could he? It was a great ball by Roberts, though. It was a good ball in.
Cracking ball by Roberts, and I actually thought he had a pretty good game in a little bit of an unfamiliar position. We've seen him mostly on the sort of right-hand side of the attack, haven't we, since he's been at the club? But to play sort of, a pseudo wing-back, left midfield sort of role, I thought he did really well. And, he should have probably scored in the first half. He had a good shot where he came inside and he hammered it straight at the keeper, didn't he? Where he probably should have just slotted it beneath him.
Yeah, he had a couple, didn't he? I think there was another one as well where he should have probably scored. Yeah, that's the only thing really, that if we're going to sort of put any dampeners on his performance, that first one especially, I think he just overthought it really. He just had to hit the ball.
Too much time to think about it.
Yeah.
But I really like Roberts as a player, and I think, there was that move, wasn't there, where he got the ball on the left-hand side in the second half, sort of played a few 1-2s, spread it out to the right, and Pritchard almost got in there with a header. And that would have been the goal of the season, I think, if we'd managed to put that one away, because it was such a nice flowing move. So it's good to have these options, as you say. The squad's good, but the ball in from Roberts was beautiful, and Danny Barr couldn't really miss, could he?
No, and we managed the game out after that point. We, like I say, it was like a training exercise. Really, it was perfect for what we needed. You didn't want to have a game where we were getting battered from end to end, and the players were being stretched, and that sending off early in the game that set the tone. And after that, we could have Yeah, we could have went one or two ways, and what we did was we managed the game brilliantly.
Yeah.
It's been one of the big criticisms of Alex Neil that we often don't manage the games well over 90 minutes, but in this instance we did. We were fantastic, and it sets us up brilliantly for the rest of the week, Phil, doesn't it? I mean, we've got Rotherham on Tuesday. Like I say, the last thing you wanted was to have to contend with a load of knocks and bumps and bruises and the players being run into the ground. We were very, very solid, and Rotherham aren't going to want to be playing us when we're playing like that.
No, definitely not. I mean, the final kind of 15-20 minutes of the game yesterday, we just eased down really, and we just kind of saw the game out reasonably comfortably. There wasn't much. We did it with the minimum of effort and physical exertion really, and that was really encouraging. So as you said, Gav, to come through that game, a relatively easy game for us. With obviously the Pritchard's injury, Winchester's injury was the only real dampener on it. But yeah, like you said, it's the perfect setup really for that Rotherham game, because obviously after Plymouth, I felt that quite a few of our players looked as if they were running a little bit on empty. And my concern was kind of, can they summon that extra percentage that they need to get them through the final 3 games to ensure that they secure a playoff place? And yesterday was an emphatic response to that, so that was really good. It is the perfect build-up to the Rotherham game, because they know what we're capable of. They're going to have seen that game yesterday, and they're going to know, hey, this Sunderland team are just starting to purr a little bit now. It's going to be a challenge for them on Tuesday night as well. We were looking at it as being potentially a challenging game, but if we can play as half as well as we did yesterday, we've got a really good chance of winning. So yeah, perfect setup for it, Gav.
Yeah, one thing we haven't touched on, the red card. Well, I sort of touched on it, but I didn't ask your opinion on it, Martin. The red. Do you think it was a red? From where I was sat in the ground, it did look like he didn't play the ball, which is why he got sent off. But we've seen Ross Stewart go down like that quite a lot, haven't we? He's quite good at trying to buy those types of fouls in the box. I don't know. I can't get it. I don't know. What do you think? I've watched it back, and I think it was, but.
Nah, like if that had been against us, I'd have been furious that he got sent off. I wouldn't have had any complaints about the penalty. But for it to be a sending off, the foul's got to be deliberate, and it's got to be a clear goal scoring opportunity. I'm not sure it was a clear goal scoring opportunity when the foul took place, but the referee obviously thinks it was a clear goal scoring opportunity, and he thinks it was a deliberate foul. So that's why he got sent off. So you can kind of understand the thinking process of the referee, but. As I say, if that had been at the other end of the pitch after 8 minutes, I'd have been absolutely furious. Like
their manager wasn't happy at all. That's pretty much the basis of his after-match comment, wasn't it? He said that he felt the result was harsh on them purely because he didn't think it was a red card. I
actually don't think it changed the game that much, though. I actually don't think because they didn't change the way that they played, and I actually thought the sending off could have been a bad thing for us at that point, because I suspected they would just put 2 banks of 4 in there and try to defend the game and make it really difficult for us and try to catch us on the break. And as I say, they didn't change the way they were approaching it. So I thought it gave them an opportunity to do something a little bit different, but they just didn't look at doing it. It was puzzling.
Yeah, Alex Neil was asked about it after the game, and he said he would have been pretty annoyed, like if that was his player being sent off. But he also acknowledged, he went, to be honest, I don't know the rules anymore. He says, like, does anybody know the rules anymore?
Yeah.
He's like, so there's probably some referee somewhere listening to me say this and saying, no, this is the rule. But he's saying, I genuinely don't know. He said, but if that was me, I would have been annoyed. What about you, Phil? Red card or not?
It looked harsh live when I saw it live in the stadium, and then when I watched it back last night, it was one of those borderline ones, as Martin said. If that goes against you, you're absolutely furious about it. But to be fair, we've been on the receiving end of so many atrocious refereeing decisions this season. I think frankly it was about time we got one that went in our favour. But yeah, as Martin said, that could have changed the dynamic of the game, because they could have shut up shop, and gone kind of like what Gillingham tried to do a few weeks ago, basically just try and spoil the game at every turn. But it was kamikaze stuff from them. They were just so open, even after the red card, and we cashed in. So yeah, I think classic example of if it goes against you, you're unhappy about it, but if it goes for you, poetic justice, because you've had so many calls go against you this season.
Yeah, that result leaves us 4th in the table. I think the goal difference helped us, didn't it, in that regard? We edged above the other teams because of goal difference, so it was important that we got plenty of goals in the game. But yeah, that leaves us 4th in the table. We're 6 points behind MK Dons with a game in hand. We are 6 points behind Rotherham, who we play on Tuesday night. But to be honest, it's still so difficult to see what's going to happen. Oxford can't make the playoffs now. They're out of it because they've only got one game left to play and they're 5 points behind. They've totally shit the bed, haven't they, Oxford? But Sheffield, Wickham, Plymouth and us, it's 4 teams going for 3 spots. It's one of them, innit? I know we've got the advantage over Wickham and Plymouth because we've got a game in hand, as do Sheffield. Plymouth have had a horror run, and that's reflected in their results, hasn't it? As they've sort of tailed off, they've not been able to win games. But yeah, it sort of went our way, didn't it, Martin? This weekend, the results.
I think it could have gone better. I think if Sheffield Wednesday had beaten Wickham, I think that would have almost made our place secure in the playoffs. As it is now, we still need 4 points to guarantee it.
Yeah,
is the way it is, but still in our hands. I think the only complaint you could have had, apart from the injury yesterday, was we should have scored. We could have had 10. We could have ran it with a bloody cricket score, and it could come down to goal difference. And the 4-goal swing yesterday helped us to get a bit of parity in goal difference, but we could. It was there for the taking to add a few more, and I think that it was a balance, wasn't it, between just managing the game out and looking after fitness and all that sort of stuff, and getting a few goals that were on offer. But I tell you, it's like a bloody football version of Wacky Races at the end of this season, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't say with any confidence where it's gonna go. And we can still get promoted. If we beat Rotherham 5-0 on Tuesday, we could go into the last game of the season with a good chance of going up automatically, which would be crazy. You get good odds on it, man.
Yeah, I mean, what's the chances of winning 5-0 on Tuesday? I suppose we did beat Sheffield 5-0, didn't we? So
and they
shown we can do it at home,
didn't they?
Yeah. So it is possible. I mean, I haven't had a proper chance to look at everything in depth, but while I've got the fixtures in front of us, we'll have a look. Wigan will ignore because they're going for a different place in the table than we are. But Sheffield play Fleetwood on Tuesday at the same time we play Rotherham.
If Fleetwood win, they stay up.
So it's an important game, but their form's terrible. I mean,
it is.
Fleetwood, it's more likely they'll lose, to be fair. They're absolutely shocking. Yeah, Fleetwood against Sheffield is a big game in the league. Obviously, we play Rotherham. I keep saying that we've just got to win, concentrate on ourselves, win our game, let everything else fall into place. But I do fancy us on Tuesday, and we'll not go too in depth with it, but I fancy us. So if we win that game, we go into the final game, which I actually think is a harder game, which might sound daft to people, but Morecambe are scrapping for their lives at the bottom of the table. They may well need to win that match. If Fleetwood do us a favour and beat Sheffield, they go above Morecambe, who would then only be 2 points clear of Gillingham going into the final day. So it would mean Morecambe need a point or a win to stay up, and it could be very interesting at both ends of the table. But going into that final game, then Tuesday night there's only us playing Rotherham, Fleetwood playing Sheffield, and Wigan playing Portsmouth. But going into the final set of games on Saturday, Rotherham are away at Gillingham, who may well need to win to stay up.
Well, I think they need to win for a chance of staying up.
Yeah. Which could make it interesting, how things go on the final day when we're playing Morecambe. Sheffield host Portsmouth, who have nothing to play for, but can be a difficult opponent. Other than that, what's going on around us? Wickham are away to Burton, and Burton are, as we've found out countless times down the years, Burton are a decent team. Plymouth have MK Dons, who may well need to win that game to win an automatic promotion spot. And then obviously we're away at Morecambe. So you're right. I think you've just said there. It's a bit like the Wacky Races. It is. It's going to be one of them where it goes down to the final day. You just know it. I don't think Alex Neil would grumble at a point on Tuesday. Obviously, he wants to win, but I think if it was a bit like the Plymouth game, where it's sort of very even and intense, I don't think he'd grumble at going into that final game with a point. But ultimately, we want to win against Rotherham on Tuesday just to give ourselves a bit of breathing space at the weekend. I think if you're just looking at the two teams, Phil, Morecambe are at the bottom end of the table, we're at the top end of the table. You would fancy us to win that game, regardless of what's hanging on it.
Yeah, you would hope so, yeah. But again, it's one of those where, last day of the season, You know, you've got to maintain your concentration, you know, what's going on around you, etc., etc., etc. So it's going to be, you know, it could be one of those games where there's a lot of the players looking towards the touchline, what's the score elsewhere type of thing, you know. Yeah. But as you said, Gav, you know, we have to just concentrate on ourselves. But it's just a bit bittersweet because, you know, you look at the goal difference this year, when you look at some of the hammerings we've received this season, and you look back and you think, God, if only we hadn't conceded 6 at Bolton, if only we hadn't been, you know, walloped at Fratton Park, etc. But that's gone now, and there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, I think. But regarding Tuesday and Rotherham, you know, I think the players will be buoyant, you know, after yesterday's result. I think they'll be on a real high. They'll be really excited to get into that game. And you know, I have to just say as well, I just want to touch on the subject of leadership, which I know we've spoken about previously on podcast. I think Corey Evans is going to be a key player for us for this final 2 games. Look, he was exceptional yesterday, led by example, real captain's performance. And I think he'll be telling, particularly his younger teammates, look, lads, we go out there, we do the business against Rotherham, and we're almost there. And I think they've got to get that positive mindset into the players. And I think that comes from Alex Neil, and it certainly comes from the senior players like Evans, Bailey Wright as well, Danny Bart, people like them. So it's going to be a big test for us, but I'm very confident going into Tuesday's game, I have to be honest with you.
Are you, Martin? Are you confident?
I haven't got a clue. It's one of those games that I really don't know, but I think you kind of look at it objectively, and you know, since Alex Neil's come in, I think he's been in charge for 13 games, 26 points out of those 13 games. We've lost 1, won 7. We've looked an awful lot more solid. So you kind of go, all things considered, you'd fancy us to get a result of some sort on Tuesday. Hopefully it's 3 points that takes us a giant step towards securing a playoff place. And as I say, like, if we beat Rotherham, we go into the last game of the season still with that little chance of automatic promotion. And who knows? Well,
it would be nice to be able to play for that. I mean, that'll be the message he's probably sending to the players. I would say. I think he'll be reaching for the stars. Alex Neil, he'll want to try and get that second spot, even if there's only a glimmer of hope at this stage.
Yeah.
But he'll be telling the players on Tuesday, look, we win this tonight and we win big. You could be going to Morecambe on Saturday with the chance of going up automatically, and we don't have to go through the playoffs. You know. Yeah. I'd love to be a fly on the wall at the minute, because if he's as ruthless in the training ground and on the training pitch as he is with the press off it, then I mean he must be fascinating to work for. He must just be brilliant. If I was a player, I would run through brick walls for a manager like that. I would absolutely love it. He's just no nonsense. He knows exactly what he wants. The players all understand their role in this squad and the role in this promotion campaign, I guess. Where in previous seasons, we just haven't had that, have we, Martin? I think it might be you or Chris at some stage over the last few weeks has brought this up, but in the last 2 playoff campaigns that we've went through, we've went into it with no momentum at all, because we've ultimately dropped off from the top 2 places, and it's sort of like a booby prize. It's a bit like when you qualify for the Champions League and a team qualifies for the Champions League and they lose in that 3rd qualifying round and they end up having to play in the Europa League, and everyone's like, well, you know, it's been a bit like that. I mean, if we can equate it to anything in sort of at our standard of football in League One, it's a little bit like that. Whereas with where we are now, we've been really good for months. Like our form has been good. We're now starting to see the finishing touches. We're not just solid. We're now seeing a little bit of quality. We've got players coming back in. I would not be disappointed if we don't. I know there's a very slim chance of us getting in those automatics, but I'm personally not disappointed. Now I've already got over the fact that that's out of sight. I got over that ages ago, and I've my full focus has just been like, we have to finish in them playoff spots and we have to be in good form. And I said this weeks and weeks ago. People who listen will have heard us say it. We have to be in good form going into it. And at the minute, when you look at the form of the other teams in there, I think we're the best team in the playoffs at the minute.
We're certainly the form team in the league, I would say. And, you know, we're not coming into form. We are in good form at the right time. We've got players coming back from injury, players hitting form and fitness. And, you know, last season we kind of stumbled into the playoffs and we were in a great position to actually go automatically at one point. And then we finished on such a sort of damp note that it was very hard for the team to get up, and you know the fans to an extent as well, to get up for the playoffs. And even last season, I think we finished on 77 points, so we're already 3 points ahead of where we were at the end of last season with 2 games remaining this time. So we're in good form coming into the last week of the season on a bit of a head of steam, really, and hopefully we can just keep that up. As you say, Gav, like Alex Neil seems to be the type of manager who won't let anybody get complacent about anything at all. And, the good thing about having such a relatively big squad anyway is that competition for place is absolutely fierce. And one game that somebody isn't at 100%, like Jack Clark last week, out of the team. And you've got to put in training to get your place back. And if you get a good performance in during the game, then you'll stay in the team for the next one. So, look, it's all positive. And again, like as you said earlier, nobody's going into this last week of the season thinking, oh God, we're going to finish in the playoffs. We've missed out on automatic promotion. It's looking forward to the prospect of going into the playoffs. Because I think we all feel as if, if you're going to back a horse, you're going to back us at the moment.
Yeah. Phil, anything to add on that, mate?
I think that's what Alex Neil has done. He's kind of changed the mindset from, I think what he's basically, the message he's sending to the players is the playoffs are a challenge to be embraced rather than feared. And I think because Alex Neil is quite belligerent by nature, I think he's like, right, okay, I'll take as much of this burden as I can, the handling the stress of getting into the playoffs. You just go out there and play your football, but play it without any fear. I think you saw that yesterday in the performance. But just to pick up on a point you made earlier on, Gav, about, and I've been banging this drum for a long time as well. I think that even after we beat Wigan 3-0 early doors under Alex Neil, and I said that we had to build momentum ahead of the playoffs because, as you said in previous playoff campaigns, we've stumbled across the line. Automatic promotion has fallen away from, or we've fallen away from automatic promotion. And then everyone kind of struggles to get themselves up for the playoffs. But with this season, we've had to kind of readjust our target when kind of automatic promotion disappeared. Then you start vying for the playoffs, and that kind of gives you a new target to focus on. So I think that's what Alex Neil's done. And I get the sense now that we're building up towards the playoffs rather than stumbling into them. And that's going to be a key. That's going to be the key difference, I feel.
Yeah,
a big difference in how we approach it as well, Mike. Like this thing that Alex Neil keeps on saying about one game at a time, and really, if you take the magnitude of the playoffs and the thing that you can achieve and the outcome you can achieve at the end of it, and break it down, it's 3 games against League One opposition, all of whom we've competed against, gone toe to toe with, and at the minute we're in better form than all of them. So if you kind of break it down into that respect and forget about going up. We've got 2 games this week, and then hopefully we'll have 3 other games to play and take them one at a time. And, as we've said earlier, he's very focused on putting a team together to play the opposition of that particular game. It's not, I thought earlier in the season we kind of had that attitude of we're a better team than everybody, let's go out and hammer them. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Whereas we're kind of treating each game individually, putting the team out on the park, getting our tactics. And, the tactics have changed game to game, and the style of play has changed a little bit game to game, depending on who we're facing. So that kind of gives me confidence as well, in that he's looking at it really one step at a time, and he's not looking at the finishing line.
Well, you've got me hoping even just a tiny little bit, Martin, that we might go up automatically. So I'm clinging on to that. It's the hope I can't stand after all.
Why not, It's a hope that kills you.
Yeah, we've got a massive, massive, massive week. We do this every single week, and obviously next week will be no different. And I'm praying that we are at least in the playoffs. There's so much that can happen. It would be such a Sunlun thing if we didn't finish in the playoffs. But I am very confident, and I've got full belief in this manager, which it's been a long time since I've said that about any Sunderland manager, to be honest. I've liked all of them to varying degrees, but I think just this guy is the perfect manager for this situation we're in, and he's doing such a good job. And I just hope that we don't blow it in the last week, because we've done so much good work over the last couple of months. It would be a massive, massive shame to end the season, even dropping out of form and still finishing in the top 6 would be disappointing, because we've worked so hard to get ourselves into this position, and I would love us to be sat here in a week's time with 6 points on the board, because I think we're more than capable of beating these next 2 teams and taking maximum points from the games, and fingers crossed that'll be the case. But it's about time to finish up. So thanks, Phil, for joining us once again. Thanks, Martin. Thank you very much.
Cheers, lads.
And thank you to the listeners for joining us, and hopefully like I say, in a week's time we'll be back talking about Sunderland's last 2 victories and in a nice strong finish to the season. Catch you all later. Cheers.